Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Danny Morley.
And today, Danny and I are diving into losing friendships on the awakening path. What a fun, very unexpected chapter of the awakening path. I always talk about this about, there's no blueprint as to here's what's going to happen, here's what you're going to endure, and here's how you're going to move about it. And I think one of the biggest shocks to me as I started to awaken was what I was going to lose in terms of friendships. And obviously we can go into like what you gain, but yeah, I think it's been a real shock. And the amount of times I've had to grieve friendships that I thought were going to be lifetimers has been, it's just been pretty shocking for me, at least.
Yeah, same. I mean, you make friends and you think at the time you're making them, oh, we're going to be best friends for life. And then you change.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they change, or sometimes you change and they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that doesn't create, like a beautiful growing friendship. And then you have to go through the process of saying goodbye. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I've found sometimes it's them saying goodbye to you, which has happened to me, which has been very difficult, especially during the beginning, like first few years of when I was really starting to like open up to a very different side of me inside of this whole experience of life. And sometimes it's the other way around, that you have to be the one that kind of says goodbye, which I've also had to do as well. And neither one are easy. Both come with their own challenges, and both very necessary as we as souls, grow into who we're supposed to become in this lifetime or not.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that there are all different types of friendships that you grieve. Like for me, there's been the lifers where you think like, oh, you're best friends and you've been through so much for so many years. And I think some of the things that I've had to grieve is watching a lot of my close friends who I'm no longer close with become mothers, and not being able to be a part of their lives in the way that I used to be. And it's nobody's fault, but it's like this. And I always use this analogy, but it's like one day everybody's speaking English, right? You're all speaking English. We understand the language. We know how it's written. We know the inside jokes. We know the colloquialisms and we know all of that. And then one day you learn German and then you can no longer communicate anymore. And watching and feeling that shift happen over time was really hard for me. And then watching them go into all of these other stages in your life, I used to make all these jokes with my closest friends of like, I can't wait to be that cool aunt. Because I always low-key knew that I was never going to be a mother to a human. So, and my friends were always like wanting to be mothers. So I was like, I'm going to be that cool aunt, and like that cool aunt that like the kids are always going to want to hang out with. And not being able to be a part of all of that I've had to process a lot of that. And then I think that there's also the friends that come and go on your awakening journey. I've gained a lot of friends in my spiritual walk and then quickly lose them. And I realize they're just here for a moment in time to show me what I need to be shown, to learn what I need to learn, and then they'll go. And obviously those aren't as difficult as the ones that you really thought, you would grow old with.
Yeah. And, you've got a few years on me, a few extra years. And so your kind of like friends that you grow up with in high school, they're all at that age now, right? Where they're all really starting to have kids. For me, it's like everyone's all the people I grew up with, they're getting married. Few of them have had kids. But as you're like in your mid-30s, like that's really...
I'm not in my mid-30s. I'm in my latter 30s now.
You're in your mid-30s.
No, I'm in my latter. 37 is latter, I would say.
Okay, I don't want to disclose your age, but mid to latter 30s, right? Yeah, all those people that you knew at school, people that you grew up with, that's real, yeah, prime time to either have already had a kid or looking to
Mhm,
have a kid. And so, yeah, I'm sure you're really seeing that a lot right now, that reflection of, oh, this is because that's the conditioned um, kind of life that we're fed, right? We go
mhm,
to school, we have to study really hard, and your school is so important, and you must make sure you do well. And what I found is the test that you're doing is only important enough to get you to the next test that you have to do. And then as soon as you pass that thing, the thing that you did before, I grew up in the UK, so it's like GCSEs, A levels, university.
mhm,
None of it really matters anything if you keep going higher and higher.
mhm,
And if you end up with a master's degree or PhD, it doesn't matter what you got in your undergrad. Like it's
mhm,
so ridiculous. So we're conditioned to go to this school to obtain this piece of paper with this grade on it. And then we finish that, and then we have to get this really good job wherever we finish in school. And then we've got to pay back all the loans and the taxes that we've now, accrued over the last however many years of our life. And then the programming is have kids, and that's the next part: get a house, have kids.
mhm,
And if you don't do that, that puts you in a very different place socially, um, from what the path that you're walking on is very different to that. And not to say you can't walk this path and have kids, of course you can.
mhm.
Just mean, for you in particular and myself.
Yeah, and I think that there's also the aspect of I grew up very Christian and, like, religious, and so all of my closest friends are of the Christian religion. This is where we met, this is where we grew up, this is where we were social, everyone in our circle was a Christian, church was the center of everything. And then I'll never forget one of my closest friends who, there are still moments where I still grieve that friendship because we were so close. When I had my spiritual awakening, I had coffee with her one day and she was like, "So is Jesus not your number one anymore?" And I asked her, I'm like, "What do you mean by that?" And she's like, "Well, is Jesus at the top or not?" And I was like, "Well, Jesus is all of us. Jesus, God, that's what we all are. We are one in that sense. Like, there's no hierarchy that it's like Jesus and then God and then this and then that." I'm like, "That's what religion's taught us. But on my path and what I know to be true is that we are all of the same." And I remember the look in her face, and I knew that that was the moment that this was the end of everything because she could not hear what I was saying because she was not in a place and not open to anything other than her beliefs, which is fine, which is okay. But that meant to me on an energetic level that if you can't ride on the same belief wave as me, if we cannot be connected in this way, because it goes against everything that I put all of my stuff on, like 100% of her is on the Christian faith, then this can no longer be. And I obviously I do believe that there are friendships out there where you could be a Christian, you could be on the path of spirituality and be friends, but that means that two people are willing to tango. And in this friendship, she wanted the salsa and I was still doing the robot. So it was like it was not going to happen. And um yeah, it's also a very lonely there's the loneliness aspect that comes too as the friends start dwindling one by one by one.
Yeah. Well, when you build a whole egoic construct around, what is true for you,
Mhm.
right, which is, what happens in religion, then when you go against that and you're at that lower level of consciousness of duality, right and wrong, then when someone says, "Oh, Jesus isn't number one," and you believe Jesus is number one, all of a sudden, if you're in duality, like you're now my enemy, and you're
Mhm.
saying that what I believe is wrong, and that isn't necessarily what you were saying. Like,
No,
right? You weren't trying to make her feel wrong or tell her she was wrong. It's just
no.
that you believe something different, and where that person was at couldn't honor the fact that you had a different belief, which is then the question goes to, do you want to be friends with somebody that can't honor your personal choices in life?
Yeah. Yeah, and if I could veer a little bit, and this is the energy that I've always felt from Christianity. I think that on this path, when you make content, especially on social media about this path, I mean, the amount of religious people that come for
Yeah.
me, that constantly say things like, You need to be saved by Jesus, repent your sins, like come back to the Lord, he's coming back," all this stuff. what I've always felt. And like, I've been a part of it. I went on mission trips. Like, I went to Mexico trying to convert people into Christianity, trying to get people saved from Jesus and all these things. And it's this constant, like, this is the only way. This is the right way. And it's all of this. If this is not true, then I will fucking fall apart, and they will not be able to handle that, because Christianity doesn't build any power inside of you. What Christianity teaches you is constantly looking outside of you, which
Mm.
keeps you so powerless and weak inside and disconnected. And so this energy that I felt from her, and like from so many people in my life, is just like, if you're not going right, we can never travel anymore, kind of thing. And I've had to learn how to honor that. Like, do I want, like the question you just asked, do I want those kind of relationships and friendships in my life when there is no openness? Fuck no. That
Exactly.
it creates so much friction for no fucking reason, because two people are not willing to be open and in the way of honoring of each other and their beliefs. Then that's it. There is no other way to go.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's keep going on to what you said earlier about the loneliness,
Yeah.
because it does get super lonely,
Oh,
especially right at the beginning when you're it. At least this was my experience. When you first start realizing there's so much more to this life than what you've been led to believe,
mhm.
and then you try and have those conversations with the people that you're surrounded with. For me, 2018, 2019, 2020, like those people, it just wasn't there was a few, but few and far between.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't happening. And that led for many years, 2020 through till probably since I started MSU, of kind of searching, like a couple of years of searching for people to be able to connect with on a deeper level. And that's not always the easiest thing. We live in a very social world in terms of social media, but there is a big difference between commenting on someone's video and really seeing someone and resonating with them, and listening to a podcast, and then meeting them in person and having a physical friendship with them. It is another level of friendship. And when you don't have, like, I'm so blessed to have you, Ellie, as my partner in life and like my best friend, is that we can, we get to talk about all of these deeper things. And some of my favorite times with you are just sat on the sofa having a really deep conversation around something to do with consciousness and spirituality and healing and programming. And without that, it's lonely. It's
Yeah.
very lonely. And I know I've spoke about this before, but I was in Colorado and trying to have these deeper conversations with people, and all they wanted to talk about was the skiing and the snowboarding. And
Yeah.
listen, that's where they're at. That's beautiful. It was just challenging for me at the time, because I had this huge thirst to speak about the meaning of life and what it is and what is this existence, and just to go deeper. And yeah, it was met with a lot of silence or awkwardness. And I realized very quick, oh, that there isn't a space for that within the friends that I have. And then you end up I ended up internalizing a lot of it and going on a solo mission, and that led me to actually becoming more comfortable in my loneliness and sitting at home alone on a Friday night. I still remember the first Friday I did this. I would always go out on Friday, hang out with people. Even if when I stopped drinking, I would still go out and hang out with people on Friday. And then my first Friday being like, I'm just going to go home and be with myself. And I would study spirituality on my own. And it would be lonely and I would have to get used to it. But it wasn't until I started this work that I learned how to start to alchemize the
Mhm.
energy of being alone, and realize that it's a wounded part of me that's in disconnection. When I connect to my heart, that my soul, I'm not lonely anymore, and all of a sudden I get to experience the beauty and the enjoyment of my own solitude, my own peace, which I absolutely love now.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to what you're talking about, um, it's not only people, friendships that I love that you lose just because you had the same faith and things like that. It's just, the regular schmegular friend where before you would connect on
Yeah.
gossiping or talking about very third dimensional things, or, just talking shit, and like, I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't, because, the third dimensional world is all duality, it's separation. And obviously not that I'm in oneness and like I'm, enlightened, but I'm saying like, everything before, I even like I had this one friend recently. She's a very spiritual girl and whatever. And she would just talk about like guys she had sex with. And I was like, I can't do this. And this is no judgment. Like, do you whatever you want to do, but this is not where I want to connect with anybody on any level anymore. And
Yeah.
but old me would kiki with anybody. Anything about anything that was very surface level. I was all in. And now I'm in a place where I'm like, if there is no depth, there is nothing. And it doesn't mean that we have to be on the same level. And some of the people that Danny and I chill with are way higher than us, right? But we're open and we're willing to go to the depths of wherever, because that's just where we are at. And for me, if you can't go past a certain level, like, love ya, but this is not something that's going to blossom or grow between us.
Yeah, and part of that, this is what I've realized, is it's not coming from a place of, oh, well, I'm better than you,
Mm-mm.
at all, not at all. But more, I only have a certain bandwidth of energy and attention that I can offer to other people. And so I've noticed over the last couple of years, the more and more and more that I've healed and evolved, that bandwidth definitely gets narrower.
Yeah.
And therefore, who I choose to give my energy and attention to, I'm a lot more careful with, for lack of better terms. I have to really think about it, and I can't spend loads of time with loads of people anymore because I feel so much, and it can be very draining. And so I have to be careful. I can't just spend time with, even when we had the live event, I know we spoke about this on the podcast, like after 3 days of hanging out with all the coaches at MSU, I was done. I needed a day on my own. I needed to decompress. I'd used up all my fun tokens. I needed to retreat into my little hermit, as a 6'2" human design, same as Ellie. And yeah, I just don't have the bandwidth to offer that. And all of my wounding when I was younger just wanted to be with friends.
Yeah.
My I can't remember what house it is, Ellie. My Chiron is in what? Is in
11.
Ellie 11th. That's what family relate. No,
Friendship,
friendship.
community.
Okay, yeah. Um,
I've
but for
told
anyone
him this many times, and the man doesn't retain this information.
for anyone who likes astrology out there. But some of my deep wounds is all about being accepted from my friends, and I have this general feeling that I've never felt like I fit in. I've always felt like a black sheep. I always feel like, especially around guys, like they're connecting on a frequency that I just don't operate at, and I don't quite understand how they're doing it. And I'm starting to really reflect on, is it to do with my disengaged father that I had? Or is it to do with the fact that the level at which maybe I want to connect at is deeper than what maybe they can offer? Maybe it's a mix of all of these things. I've not got to the bottom of it, and I'll keep exploring. But yeah, it's been a journey. Not one, because I always want to hold on to friends. That's where my wounding shows up as well, is holding on to these friendships when sometimes it's like, okay, you can just let that go. That's
Yeah.
okay. You can let that be, what it was, and enjoy it for what it was. You had a beautiful time being friends, but maybe you two aren't kind of in the same place anymore, and that's okay.
Yeah. And honor, grieve through however long that's gonna take you to grieve through each and every single one of those people that go. It is what it is, and surrendering to it is there's so much freedom in that, because I think before I tried so hard to like hang on, and I was just suffering. And I was like, "Ellie, why are you trying to hang on so much? Like, it's okay." And I think it's really important. I know that you have a different perspective on this. And I truly do think that it's because you're a male and I'm a female. And I have gained a lot of new friendships with women in the past few years because they're on the same path as me. And I made this video recently where I was just, it was just like a regular Tuesday. And I was voice noting like four new friends in my life. And all the voice notes that were going back and forth between me and all of these women were just like so deep. They were just like all telling us what they're moving through, what they're learning, how they're growing. And I went on TikTok and I made this video of like, I just can't believe this is my life now. Whereas before I was bonding on whatever freaking third surface level bullshit there was. And now I'm getting to know the deepest parts of people and how they're moving through it. And like it's such a like a mind-blowing experience to go from that to this. And then, Rachel wrote under the video, she's like, that's true intimacy when you can connect with people like that on that kind of level. And I was just so grateful. And I think when I was moving through so much loneliness before, I was like, how am I ever going to make friends? So like, what is this ever going to look like? And of course, I think that's a very necessary part that you have to move through, that you never think it, this program of like, I'm never going to have a friend and it's never going to be like that. It's like, oh my God. And that's part of the lack and scarcity that, runs prevalent in this world. A lot of us run, but no, it's there. You are abundance, which means the more you elevate, the more you create space for what is meant to come into your life. Right. It's like, even with Danny, like if I was just dating the asshole dude that I was dating before, and I just stuck onto that because I'm running a program that I'm never going to find a man that's better than this guy, even though he's shit, it doesn't allow who I'm really meant to be into the picture. It's the same thing with friendships. If you keep hanging on to this old shit, you're not allowing them to be spaced for all of these other new beings to come in and for the rest of your life.
And there's something I've learned. If you do notice that there's a friendship that's very triggering for you, brilliant. That's a chance for you to see what's in there for you to learn, to heal, and grow from. And there's a reason that person is in your life. There's a reason that person you're being attracted towards, being their friend. And it's a beautiful opportunity to do some investigation, with some self-inquiry, to look through what are my programs here? Why am I constantly being drawn to people that aren't capable of a deeper connection? And this was one of the wounds that I've had to go into, and it resulted back to my father and wanting to form a connection, a deeper connection with him, and eventually like arriving at the place of seeing he's not capable of going deeper than where he's at, and I'm still going back there. And there was an analogy that Rachel used in one of our certification classes, and it was like you're going to an empty well, like to get water, and it keeps being empty, and you keep going back there expecting there to be water, and the 1,000 times that you've been before, there's not been any water. Choose a different well. And it was that like wake up call, like, oh, okay, like the reason why I'm constantly going back to particular people for friendships is because I'm replaying this wound with my father of expecting at some point, he's going to see me and he's going to get me and he's going to want to connect with me. And the truth is, he connected with me all my life to the capacity that he could. And if I have a choice, I can heal and elevate up beyond that and choose to honor that, or I can keep going back and allowing that same situation to just play out. And obviously, this is coming through in the form of friendships. And it's funny you say that about like deeper conversations, intimate conversations with women, because I've found my whole life I've gravitated towards having close relationships as friendships with women my whole life. And even sometimes when I'm with Ellie and we're hanging out with a couple, I can find myself like wanting to be in Ellie's conversation with the woman. And I'm like, over here talking about sports, and she's talking about emotions and, deeper stuff. I'm like, I want to be in that one. Like, that's been my whole life. But I know that's changing. It's not been, all of my friendships. I've had some really, really amazing friendships with men that are not like that are deeper. But it's just an interesting pattern that I find. And men are really blocked. Is the long story short. And that's been a challenge for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited for you in the future as more men go into themselves. But yeah, I've seen not what a struggle it is, but that is difficult, you know? It's like if I switched roles, shit, that would suck. Like men are evolving and women are not evolving as fast and like not getting to connect with women in that way, it's definitely obviously your soul knew that you were going to experience something like this, but definitely challenging for sure.
I mean, just within our own organization, we've got like like 3 or 4 times the amount of women, which is amazing. I love it. It's like I
Yeah.
show up to a call sometimes and like the screen is full of just like badass, powerful women who are doing this work. And there's either me or another guy. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, like this is rad. This is cool. But it is that thing of like, wow, like I mean, my certification class back in 2021, which is when I started it, was like all guys, and there was
Yeah.
just a couple of women in there, and most of them fell off. They either,
Mhm.
you know, they either didn't stay with the organization, or they went off and did their own thing, or stopped doing the work, or whatever. And so there's just less men doing the work, from what I see, and I hope that changes. And I'm on social media, so I see there's a bunch of guys doing it online, which is
Yeah.
great. But as I said earlier, there's a big difference between seeing someone on a video and being like, "Oh, this is rad," versus like actually having a physical one-to-one friendship.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that as this keeps going and evolving, as we keep evolving, right? If we keep choosing to go higher, um what I've learned in the past, 5 years of being on this journey is you just start to learn detachment. And it's beautiful when I can feel the attachment come up with some of my friendships now. Like, what if one day, and it's like, though it's such a beautiful time for me to like go into and alchemize what it brings up, but also detaching from, if you're going to be in my life for a year, great. I hope we have the best year ever. If you're going to be here for 10 years, awesome. Like, that's going to be so rad. And before the detachment piece was so, I was, when I look back, it's like I was attached to a lot of those friendships. I really
Yeah.
was. And that's why it was so difficult for me to move through it. And now it's this place of like, well, attachment isn't love. And like letting this be for whatever seasons or season it's going to be is beautiful. And then if we fade out, thank you for the time that we had. And that's just creating room for others to come in. And so there's so much liberation in the I think detachment is, I know that my soul came here to achieve that. I think it is literal, like there's nothing more free than that. And I just want to experience that in every shape, facet, form with every, even just like, because that's it, truly like we suffer because of the attachment. We suffer so much
Mhm.
because we cling on and we hold on. And it's like, think about how freeing it is to just detach from um anything and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just think it's
And have
awesome.
have healthy attachments to things where you can really enjoy them, during the time you're supposed to, and then if they leave for whatever reason, it's can be as something as simple as like, your favorite, pair of shoes, and you're
Yeah.
so attached to it, right? And then you lose them, or you lose one, or you outgrow one, and it's like, yeah, just appreciate them for what they were. They were incredible. Now like move on. Let it I
Such a good
heard someone,
example.
Peter Crone, the other day say, "It's not let it go, let it be." And I like that. I was like, "Oh,
Mm,
that's true." Like, you just let it be. It's fine. Like, you really enjoyed those shoes. And the way of honoring comes in here a lot, is
mhm.
like being able to honor. And I want to bring this in as well. Like, Rachel made this video this past year, sometime in this past year, about how sometimes the most elevated thing to do is to just become the way of presence and the way of honoring for one of your friends. If maybe you're walking this path and you're starting to elevate a little bit, um, doesn't mean you have to cut out all of your friends.
Yeah.
The most elevated thing that you might need to do in that moment is really just be present and notice, oh, do I want them to talk about this deeper thing? Do I need them to go deeper with me, or am I able to just honor them for who they
Yeah.
are and the beautiful soul that they are and the light that they bring into my life in whatever way? And that's very different from the story that you gave, Ellie, earlier, which is, you know a cold hard, oh well, if you're not with Jesus, then you're against me, you're the enemy, kind of
Yeah.
thing. That's not somebody who you want to keep in your life. But it is very, very different if you are starting to truly authentically awaken. Then I've really found some beautiful work and just moments in being able to show up for friends who aren't on this path at all, and just being able to be present for them and ask them questions. And it has really taught me a lot about how we all, when we're not on this path, are very self-centered, and that's not, I'm not saying that as a bad thing.
Mhm.
I'm constantly discovering new parts of myself that are self-centered, and that's what needs healing, because that's not oneness consciousness. That's normally stemming from woundedness and the ego. And it's really beautiful to be able to see that reflection and offer support and the presence that maybe they need in that moment. Maybe they need you to just be present and to honor them where they're at. And that can be a very beautiful thing to do, and a great way to allow your friendships to thrive. I've definitely found that. And there are some friendships that the more you grow, the more you elevate. Yes, you'll go in different ways. There are other friendships that the more you elevate, the more you'll be able to be those enlightened ways of being for your friends and how,
Yeah.
or family members, whoever it is. How beautiful is that?
Yeah, one of my best friends. She and I have known each other since 22. We've been through a lot together. And she and I awakened around the same time. I think she was like maybe 4 months um, behind me. And we've been through a lot in our awakening. I think at first I was like, oh, hell yeah, my best friend's awakened. We're on the same path. And no two awakening paths are alike. And she went her way and I went my way. And I have a lot of trauma around religion. And I have a lot of trauma around, I've worked through a lot of it. There's still a lot more, but around right and wrong, like this is right and that's wrong. And so when she was moving through and learning everything that she was moving through and learning through, I was kind of learning and moving through not the opposite, but a very different kind of way of knowing and learning. So, like an example would be she's very much on the embodiment path, and I'm very much on the heart-centered path. And so we experienced a lot of friction in our friendship because she was telling me what was right about the embodiment, and I was telling her what was right about being heart-centered and living from that place. And I found myself distancing myself from her because I wasn't willing to be open to her because I had all this trauma of being told, like, that's not right. This is the right way, and all these things. And now we've moved through that. And the way that she and I share and connect now, we can exist beautifully and honor each other's perspectives and knowings and learnings. And, she always tells me, she's like, we're going to keep evolving. I'm not attached to any of what I, am learning right now and how I'm growing in that. And I completely honor and I hear what you say and I want to learn. And it was just like, oh, goddamn, like this can exist. Because obviously I've never done this before. Like, I don't know. And so the wounded part of me just wanted to say this friendship's over because it was too difficult for me to feel what that felt like. And she just stayed with me the whole time and like stuck through it. And now we get to experience our friendship on this kind of level, and we can coexist so gracefully. And I can listen to her and not be triggered into, well, that's wrong. It's like, Ellie, first of all, there's no wrong or right. Like, it's just, we're all on the path and we're all going to the same place. Okay, however we get there, we get there. And then her being able to listen to me even though it's not what she necessarily follows or what's, the way she processes things or anything like that. But we can now get to a place where, like, yeah, we're just in complete honoring of each other, and I can be in presence of with her instead of being like, no, that's wrong, that's not right, that's, and now I'm just excited to see what we cultivate as this grows.
And in part of that, did you have to grieve the old idea of what you thought the friendship was that you were maybe attached to?
Hell yeah. I wanted it to be we're on the exact same path. We think exactly alike. We do the exact same thing. And that's just the powerless program that runs of like, I don't want to be challenged in any other way because when I'm challenged, I feel weak and I feel defensive and I feel all of these programs that pop up. And now it's when it pops up, okay, you know what to do, Ellie. and then I can be in the way of presence when as I'm alchemizing, whatever she brings up in any kind of conversation.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's touch on the opposite of that, which I've definitely experienced, which is when somebody is like, "Hey, I don't want to be friends with you anymore," and
Okay.
this happens on this journey for sure. And if it's happening to you, good job. Keep going. And the reason why I say that is because to be a trailblazer, to
Mm,
really be a leader in this life, you have to, like that old saying, you have to be willing to crack a few eggs to make an omelet. And if you are really walking this path, you're probably going to trigger people and you're probably going to piss people off because you're authentically stepping into your power and you're creating a new version of yourself. The old version of you is trapped in that old world. And if you are awakening to that and you're walking this path and you're becoming a different version of you, it's very normal to have people in that world try and tear you down or then go into their programs of separation consciousness, just like your friend Ellie, right? That's very normal because that's their programming. And it happened to me. I had a friend a few years ago say, I just can't get behind the path that you're on. And it really hurt. It really
mm,
did. And I didn't understand it at the time. And it was before I started this work. So I didn't fully know how to process it. And it's come back so many times. It was like imprinted, it was unprocessed. As I'd been opening to this work, there's layers of it. And I was like, oh, wow, here's another layer of that. Oh, I'm not good enough for this person, being rejected by friends. And yeah, it can be part of the process. Not saying it's always going to be that, but if you really are walking this path, it's likely at some stage someone is going to project their shit on you.
yeah.
And then that means you go like whenever that happens now, and when I look back now at everything that transpired, I'm like, oh, that was like a sign that I was on the right path
Yeah.
because I'm ruffling a few feathers and
Yeah.
I'm not doing it intentionally. I'm just breaking free from the old version of me that was created to fit in.
Yeah.
And now I'm breaking free from that and I'm allowing myself to discover who and what I really am. And in doing that, yeah, it's gonna ruffle a few feathers.
Yeah, and also like, doing you such a favor. I just think the energy behind, right? Everything that we learn is about energetics, right? And when someone goes, I can't get behind what you're saying, or what you're saying is this, you can just feel the energy of it. It's like it's clearly triggering you. It's got nothing to do with me. And the easiest thing that they can do is cut it off. And that's fine.
Yeah.
If
Because then you know that person in your life wasn't a
yeah,
ride or die. They don't see you for who you really are. They don't see you for the soul that you are. They're seeing you through their lens of programming, which is fine. We all do this when we have all these programs and wounds. We're still in there. We do see things through that lens. And so if that's the case, you don't want someone like that in your life anyway. If all they're looking at is looking down on you or judging you in any way, it's not somebody you want to keep close or worth keeping around.
yeah, and my advice to anybody out there, like, me and Danny have some friends too that you can tell that they're meant to awaken in this path, but they know that if they do awaken, they will lose all of their friendships. And the loss of all those friendships would be too detrimental to their life. So they choose to stay where they're at, right? And to anybody else out there, like if you are experiencing this and you're hanging on to dear life, go into and feel why you need this friendship in your life so badly. Like what is in there that is crying out for your love? Because once you go into all of that and you bring that all back to you and what your inner children are asking of you or being they need guidance with, you will start to set yourself free from these friendships that you keep oh so dearly clinging on to.
Boom.
Yeah.
Do the work. And on that note, our bread and butter is these group classes They are
First
so
of all, I love bread. When you just said that, I was like, "Oh, it's some sourdough right now." Be
some
great.
sourdough and some delicious butter, whether
Olive
that's
oil.
plant-based or grass-fed, whatever floats your boat. But yeah, if you are interested in learning this work, we offer this work in groups. And the beauty about doing this work in a group, would you say?
It's awesome.
It's awesome,
So
is
good.
that you get to meet like-minded individuals,
Mhm.
and then you can say goodbye to all your other friendships and make some new friendships. Um, which is what's so awesome about these groups. We guide you through the 12-week process of
Mhm.
learning how to identify all of the programs and wounds that you have. It's the same work that Ellie and I do on a daily basis, extra daily basis right now because May has been kick-ass. But it's the same work that we do. We guide you through. We always have a couple of amazing certified coaches guiding you through this process. And, Ellie and I, we both started doing this work through groups, and, we meet up regularly in groups multiple times a week. And when you get, multiple hearts together, just the energy in there is so much more powerful. I just find them so fun because you get to see like, oh, other people's stuff, my programs, they're in other people too. They're not so nasty and scary. So they're a really wonderful way to really get deep and do this transformational work and learn it. So if you're interested in joining one of our groups, we have them going out regularly. Please join us at mastersofselfuniversity.com and sign up for a free consultation. And let's just talk about what it would be like, what you're struggling with, and see if we can help you in any way.
Yeah.
Ellie, anything to add?
Yeah, and for those of you who are like, "I wanna join, I'm a little scared, but I wanna be part of the community," we have a free Discord community, okay? It's awesome. People really share. There are coaches in there, Rachel's in there, clients in there, non-clients in there. We're just building this community, this family of oneness, so definitely join the free Discord. You can see that link in the caption below, and, if you feel the nudge, if you feel that, stop ignoring it. I'm talking to you right now because I know you're ignoring it, and you're running all these programs like, oh, it's not the right time. It's like, just drop into your soul, connect to that because he or she is going, it's time. Okay. And there has not been one day in the last 2.5 years of me being a part of this work where I go, that was a wrong decision. Like, no, soul came here to evolve. If you're listening to this goddamn podcast, your soul came here to evolve. So let's go. Okay. So set up a free consultation. Check out Rachel's book, The 20 Universal Ways of Oneness. It is on Amazon. And we also have a digital course that accompanies that. And please share, like, comment, whoever is in need of listening to the incredible episodes on this podcast helps us to keep doing this for free, and subscribe and rate us. All right. And until next time, we will see you guys then.
Bye.
Bye.